So every show I try to do a recommendation of a different streaming service, and this time I'm going to do Netflix, which is pretty much the biggest streaming service there is. And so I wanted to list off a few things. I didn't actually get to check this time if I had not repeated myself like the other times, but we'll see. Netflix has a lot of cool stuff there. Definitely have their own Black Lives Matter selection. I'm going to do a few of those, as well as other stuff I've actually been watching and some stuff I've watched before. But Netflix has a crazy catalog. Their classic section doesn't seem to change at all as I'm sort of going through this to find titles. They really don't have a lot of great classic stuff. I mean, they have like the Indiana Jones trilogy, which is great, but that's right, I said trilogy. But here are my recommendations, which I hope I'm not repeating myself from previous videos, but here we go. The first one, which is the one I last reviewed, and obviously the most obvious one, is Da 5 Bloods. It's Spike Lee's latest. It's great. It's probably one of the best movies of the year and a great Vietnam film from a perspective we don't get enough of. Another one that's been highly kind of publicized and I know was actually not Netflix makes free quite frequently is 13th, which is Ava DuVernay's documentary on the 13th Amendment, which is actually really great. I watched it a couple nights ago, as well as there's a great documentary series called Trial by Media, where it takes various stories that were kind of big in the media and examines them. The certain ones I really liked actually were the 41 Shots episode, the one about Big Dan's, which is really haunting and horrible, but like what was covered, not the show, it was really great. And the Subway Killer, there's one about some rich guy in the middle, which I hated, and I haven't seen the last episode, to be fair. I am going to recommend Luke Cage this time, because I've been watching it a lot recently, and I quite like it, so there we go. As well as a movie that I really liked, actually, which used to be on Prime and now is on Netflix for some reason. I thought it was a Prime exclusive. Guess it isn't. It's called The Girl with All the Gifts. It's probably the last great zombie movie I saw. I really like The Girl with All the Gifts. I feel like it didn't get talked about enough. And it's like if you want a great zombie movie, and I talked about it to people who are horror fans, and I was like worried that they wouldn't like it, and they loved it. It's a big like horror, probably one of the big horror movies. Recent horror movies that everyone seems to like. They also have Murai, which is was nominated for Best Animated Movie. It's by isn't it by the guy who did The Girl Who Leapt Through Time? I think it is. I think I'm right on that. I actually really like Murai, about a little girl kind of accepting her younger brother and going through her family's past to accept him. I thought it was really good. They have the original The Wicker Man from the 70s, which I know everyone makes fun of. It kind of like its reputation is ruined by that Nicolas Cage remake. I think the original is actually really great. As well as two more Spike Lee's, Malcolm X and Inside Man. I'd say Malcolm X you should watch first, but if you need like a cool crime thriller, it has Denzel Washington, Jodie Foster, I think Clive Owen. It's another one of the great Denzel Spike Lee pairings. I don't think it's as good as some of their better ones. I think Inside Man was a little overrated for me. I would just much rather watch Dog Day Afternoon, but it's in that tradition. And it's a decent thriller at least. As well as a good comedy that no one talks about anymore, but I still think is great, is they had Get 'Em to the Greek with Jonah Hill, Russell Brand, and Puff Daddy, who's actually really funny in it. I really like Get 'Em to the Greek. I should probably rewatch it. I remember people really liking it at the time. And then I Am Divine, which I watched recently as well, since we're talking about Pink Flamingos as well, is on Netflix, and that's a really cool documentary. I don't think I was as blown away by it necessarily. I've seen a lot of John Waters documentaries and things about that nature stuff, but I thought it was really good. If you are sort of semi-interested in Divine, I think it's a good watch. As well as the Super Mario Brothers Super Show is on Netflix still. I thought it had left. It's still on there. There you go. And look, I'm going to put this out there that I wasn't going to recommend this, but Netflix, anything I searched kept bringing this up. So fine, Netflix, fine. The Matrix is on Netflix. They seem to really want me to see it. I have seen The Matrix. Never reviewed it. Probably should do that at some point. But The Matrix is on Netflix. So Netflix seems to really want you to watch The Matrix. Check it out. They also have Hulkverse on there. I think they just have it as one movie instead of cutting it up into two things, which is how it was presented on DVD. I recommend the Hulkverse Wolverine part, but the Hulkverse Hulk vs. Thor is cool. They're both cool, but I would recommend that. It's an animated thing from when Marvel made animated direct-to-DVD stuff. They also have Nacho Libre, which is the follow-up to Napoleon Dynamite, which I know Pan likes quite a bit, and I like it as well. I actually saw it in the preview. And then they have a documentary about Aardman called A Grand Night In, the story of Aardman, which is actually pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to play CineRam's thing, but here is CineRam giving his recommendations on what to watch.
Hello, everyone. Jim, thanks for having me on again. Folks, I'm here to do another 5 Netflix recommendations. First, I'd like to talk about See You Yesterday, which is about a couple of high school students living in Brooklyn who build their own time travel devices, which they wear in their backpacks. They're planning on entering a science fair and winning a prize, but then one of them has an older brother that gets shot by police, and so they need to try and travel back in time and prevent that from happening, and then they end up making things worse, and things get more complicated. Stefan Bristol's the director of this movie, worked with Spike Lee on Black Klansman, and Spike Lee is a producer on this movie. And although it might appear to be family friendly, it's not. It's really only appropriate for high schoolers and older because it doesn't necessarily turn out all right in the end, not to give anything away. But it's a good movie, and I would suggest it. Cape Fear. Cape Fear is a movie that came out in the early 90s. Martin Scorsese directed it right after Goodfellas. Robert De Niro and Nick Nolte are in it. It's about a lawyer who gets terrorized by one of his former clients because the client thinks that the lawyer intentionally lost the case and sent him to prison. It's a very visually stylish movie. It's been one of my favorites for years. Tremors. Tremors is also another longtime favorite of mine. The main characters are Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon. They live in a very, very small town in the American Southwest, and their little town is suddenly being terrorized by these gigantic sandworms that travel under the ground and have very good hearing, and then they pop up and grab people and eat them. They call them graboids. This movie also has like 4 direct-to-video sequels, and they're all on Netflix right now, and so you can see all of them. You can have a Tremors marathon. But they're going to be gone at the end of the month, so you should see them soon. Molly's Game. Molly's Game is written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, who wrote The Social Network and A Few Good Men and Steve Jobs. The main character is played by Jessica Chastain. It's a true story about a former skier who sort of falls into managing a high-stakes poker game, a very exclusive poker game for some very wealthy, very famous people. And she ends up being sort of strong-armed by the Justice Department years later into providing testimony about Russian mafia members who were at her game, and she doesn't want to do it. Very fast-paced movie, a lot of dialogue, very rapid-fire dialogue. It's one that I like quite a lot, and it's pretty recent, too. Finally, I'd like to talk about All About Nina, which is a drama about a stand-up comedian who's played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She's one of my favorite actors. She's one of the best reasons to see Gemini Man, the Will Smith movie from last year. And she does a great performance in this movie, really fantastic. She's funny when she's on stage, but she's also pretty tragic and sad, and her personal life is a mess. A terrific movie, a really, really terrific movie. So those are my Netflix recommendations. Really hard to get this in under 3 minutes because I want to describe so much about these films. But thank you very much for listening, and Jim, thanks again for having me on. I'll see you again soon, and happy quarantine viewing.
So those were my Netflix recommendations as well as CineRam's recommendations to what to watch on Netflix. Check out his channel. CineRam is a great guy, and you should subscribe to him right away. He's awesome, and thank you very much for doing that again, CineRam. He's kind of my Netflix cohort, I guess, and thank you very much for being on the show as well, CineRam. That was really cool of you. Anyway, happy streaming, and I hoped we helped you find something to watch on Netflix.